What would you like to reflect on?
Okay. The first thing I noticed was that a lot of the feeling that we had in Kyoto and we had in Seoul is still here. We do, of course, have a small number of participants, but the idea of communicating a shared interest is still quite strong here. We've got a few different faces, and we hope that some of the faces who are here will come to the next World Congress. And I think that's a good thing. It's a good thing. And there are many good things about the conference. There's a couple of things, though, rather than talk about all the good things, which you already know, there's a couple of things did come to mind, one of which is quite strongly there's a lot of enthusiasm about extension reading, but there are some people who still feel a little bit lost. There are some people who feel, I don't really quite know what I'm doing. I really need a bit more help here, need a little bit more help here. And one of the things I would like to see, and certainly with our scholarship recipients and other people, is to, and maybe all of us, maybe reflect a little bit more on how we can help individuals, rather than, certainly what I do is I go around and talk to hundreds, maybe thousands of people a year, and I guess you do too. Maybe I need to spend my time a little bit more with individuals and really help them build a particular program, get them right, rather than sort of send them off half-ready. I think it's one of the things that I've got from this, and so my action point after this one is to try and identify certain people I'd like to work with to really, really help to build them. Today I was talking to people from Mexico and from Vietnam. I think they would be good people to start working with. And I'd like to reach out beyond the country where I live, which is in Japan, although I do travel a lot other places. And I'd like to see a lot more work at the regional level with developing countries, trying to sow seeds in many, many different places and try and help them as much as I can. So that's my takeaway.
I think I've gotten two things out of this conference, and one is that Japan is leading, okay, and the others are following. And so Japan is further along in researching many different aspects of extensive reading, because I think our biggest obstacle here is convincing teachers and administrators that extensive reading is the way to go if you want to develop your students' English, not magic bullet web platforms, yeah? And I think that the UAE will be a leader in leading the region, but we are following Japan for extensive reading. Now, the second thing I got out of the conference was, I think yesterday morning we heard that there were only 20 graded readers of Japanese, but the last session I went to, the woman said there are 101 graded readers for Japanese learners. Now we know of 2 graded readers for Arabic as a second language readers. I think there are a lot of books for Spanish as a second language learners. So I think we're going to see, more people learning more languages and also getting into graded readers. I'd like to see M-Reader, expand to include learners of other second languages, because it's a great platform for tracking students. And I think that the ERF Foundation is going to announce soon that they're going to award Language Learner Literature Awards for graded readers in other languages, not only for English language learners. So that's very exciting.
This is one of the few times I've had an opportunity to be at a conference or a congress that was so focused. I often go to TESOL, and I often go to the American Association for Applied Linguistics. Actually, not often. I go every year to those 2 conferences, and I grow a lot from them. But there's a real benefit to coming to a conference where people are like-minded and have shared interests. So it would be really nice if the Extensive Reading Foundation and the Congress somehow reached people who are not only involved in extensive reading, but who are interested in embarking on this path to come here, because it's such a wonderful meeting of the minds, to be able to compare notes, to be able to see that the all-important message that Rob made this morning, there is not one size fits all, because we teach in different circumstances. Our classrooms are different, they have different class class. We have different types of students, different numbers of students, different number of resources. So for the field of extensive reading to begin redefining extensive reading to find out what the shared commonality is, but also the variations that are not even permissible, I don't want to say permissible, but that are reflections of reality are really very important. So number one, it's a great venue, and I hope it continues to grow and draws upon many different types of people. And I think this takes me to my next point. Throughout the entire Congress, I've been thinking that teachers in generally teach the way they're taught. And so people to break the mold, and that is connected to this whole other field of innovation diffusion. How do we get new ideas off the ground? And what we have here at the Congress are either early adopters or adopters, but we don't have the resistors. It's the resistors, those are the naysayers, who want to draw in to both understand the benefits, but also give their students the chance to partake in extensive reading because it has so many benefits. And so better understanding how to help people break out of the status quo, the comfort of the way they were taught maybe is something that the Extensive Reading Foundation could think about. How do we help the resistors open up their eyes and be brave enough to give extensive reading a try? Because I think those of us who are here know how beneficial it is for our students.
This is my first time to the conference, and like Fredricka, this is my first conference, which is very specialized in terms of its topic. And extensive reading is a big thing. I've been doing extensive reading for a long time, and this year I'm particularly pleased that there are some presentations on extensive listening and extensive viewing as well. So hopefully in the future there will be more interest in this area, because I see there's a real need, especially among the lower proficiency learners of English, in terms of them developing their listening ability. Because if students really can take advantage of extensive listening and reading, I think they will develop a lot more. They will learn a lot more English, and they will also learn much faster in terms of developing their proficiency. I would also like to say that I'm really pleased to see colleagues from Mexico. It's a big team of people. I can see their passion, their enthusiasm, despite limited resources that they're operating. But they're so committed to making sure that the students also can get a lot of benefit from being exposed to a lot of language through literature and through reading. So I'm really looking forward to seeing a lot more people being interested in starting extensive reading program with their students.
Thank you. Can I ask you, and I'm showing the background of living in Japan here, because in Japan we have a history. If I said, so who would like to add that? Everyone? Yeah. Can I ask you to turn to the person next to you and talk about your own reflection? Because that's something I know works with my students, so I'm sharing it with you. A minute or two to talk to the person next to you. Maybe not your best buddy. Yeah? Maybe somebody you don't really know. And what's your takeaway? And we'll spend a minute or two, and then I'll pass her on the mic.
Well, we were talking about Professor Warren this morning pointed out about the importance of providing objective evidence regarding. So, regarding myself, at this stage of my life, I am doing my PhD. One of the things that my supervisor and my readers in the upgrade stage pointed out is that objectivity needs to be shown in the study. So, there is a lot of practices
I can add, I totally agree. We need objectivity, but that can be involved in both quantitative and qualitative research. And when Fredricka was talking about action research yesterday, which I think is really important, it can go on both sides of it. So it can be objective, and that doesn't necessarily mean boiling it down. I mean, I know, I was just using that as a way to try to emphasize that.
Yes, we were talking about e-texts, and I think we realized that people are just thinking of reading online or as being something like reading on paper, but it's digital. But there are so many differences in them, the way students can approach them, what they can learn from them, how they handle them. And no research has been done on them. They're just sort of lumped together as over extensive reading. But they are fundamentally different, but there's very little research on that. That's one thing. The second thing isn't something we talked about, but something I'd like to suggest, related to what Fredricka said about proselytizing other people. I think what you do in the classroom is very important, but you need to set a model. You need to convince your colleagues that this is working. I suggest that you do something like give a questionnaire with, what were the good points, what were the bad points of this. Collect this, give it to your administrator. If it's all bad points, don't give it to the administrator, but make it look like it's an unbiased questionnaire, and maybe you can convince them that it needs to be extended further than just your own classroom.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. What I took from this congress is I'm so relieved, especially after seeing Fredricka's presentation the day before and also Rob learning this morning. I applied what we have done in the session, word recognition and phrase recognition, and it increased into sentence recognitions. I use a very old book, Breaking Reading Barriers. Some idea comes from there. I just thought that because there are some actually said that it's kind of silly things, asking the student kind of that practice, but as we practiced yesterday, I said it really makes sense. I mean, yeah, we need to do that, and I give that to my students in their first semester as part of reading one. And I'm so very happy this morning because actually I'm a little bit, what is that? I just thought that, am I out of extensive reading what I've done all this time? Because it's so much different with others. I do not use great readers because we cannot afford it. And then I just use novels, and I use novel, not new one. And it's not supported by the government, it's not supported by the faculty. And I give them assessments. Yeah, but just hearing Rob's presentation this morning, I'm very happy. I think it's integrated, extensive reading or something. Yeah, because I cannot force that my extensive reading class should be like any other class with sophisticated things. So this is what happened in this country, this is what happened in the other country, this is what you need, and several others. So I believe that I'm on the right track. That's why I'm happy.
Great. Great, thank you. And thank you for making that point. And Rob was talking about this morning, and I think those of us who have known Richard Day forever are all kind of surprised that people look at the 10 commandments, like the 10 ideas written in stone, because Richard and Julia never envisioned it like that. And what I hear you saying is that, I often use the expression, we don't just teach English, we teach people. And you're making it about your students and your reality. And that's what it's got to be. If you're trying to superimpose some theoretical model that somebody in Hawaii came up with, that's not going to make sense. When you make it work for your students in your school, I think that's what we're all trying to do. So thank you for sharing that.
worry about missing so many good ones, because there are not so many concurrent sessions. But still, I missed a lot. Yeah. So, although I've been doing extensive reading over 20 years, I still learn from every single sessions that I attended. So it was very helpful. And thank you, Melanie, about talking about Japanese extensive reading in Japan. And we are all a member of the JERA, Japan Extensive Reading Association. And then we are doing one major seminar, colloquium in Tokyo once, and then we have small sessions for new teachers in the regional sessions. Osaka, once in Osaka, and once in Fukuoka, and once in Nagoya, and Hokkaido. And there are several members who want to have small sessions to promote. I'm forgetting English.
No, that was a great Freudian slip.
Yeah, so to promote extensive reading to all Japan, at least. That because the students are suffering from just grammar translation. And people say, after 6 years of extensive, 6 years of English study, the formal English study, they come into university and they have to start from the beginning because they have no fluency practice for 6 years. So we are very seriously worried about our students. So that's why we're doing so small sessions all over Japan. And I would like to, personally, I would like to help if I can do to some other Asian countries from after that, from now on, after finishing making the Japanese education a little better. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, that's good. And if I could pick up on two things you said there. One, you meant to say we should promote, and you said, no, we should propagandize, and I'd say go for the propaganda. Not propaganda in the negative sense, but we are sharing something powerful. And I hope we are conscious of sharing it. And you're absolutely right about, you go to session, and the one regret is that you can't be in more places than one. So next ERF World Congress, you are allowed to bring your clone for free. Okay, so you can attend 2 sessions.
The first time I heard about extensive reading, the truth is, it was only a few months ago. So I am not an expert, of course, but I knew constantly about extensive reading. And maybe in my academic practice, in my practice like a teacher, I have worked with some strategies, on some ideas of extensive reading. But I am these are new ideas for me, and they're very productive. Thank you for all of you.
Good, thank you. New ideas and new positive, and I hope, like Oscar was saying, if we can be sharing them, and it doesn't have to be at a big conference. It can be in a small group of 4 or 5 teachers. That would be wonderful, and colleagues. Great. So thank you. I'm glad you found it useful, and I'm glad you want to share more. And I'm sorry, one more thing related. Every session you learn something, right?
Yeah.
So at the next conference, that means you. Yeah. TESOL or AVO, whatever. Please be doing stuff and share it, because that's what professionals do.
I also valued the focus that this conference offered, but it wasn't a narrow focus, it was a very varied focus, but nevertheless it allowed one to really concentrate, really think, and small is quite often beautiful. So I thought that was what was nice about this conference. And I think it's very, very important that there's so much here that is very powerful that has to be shared, and I guess it's going to have to be the pebble that you throw into the pool and the ripples go out. And I'm particularly conscious of, coming from South Africa, there is a very big need, and I know teachers would welcome this, but they're besieged by a very, very overcrowded curriculum, so they're afraid, and we need to guide them through. I don't think convincing them after the initial guidance and the raising awareness would be difficult, but that's what I would hope to do in my work with teachers and their continuing professional development.
Thank you. Yeah, because it is overcrowded.
It's been said over and over again that we're not the audience that needs this because we're already buying in. This needs to be done before the day sales. And I think, Rob, you said this morning about there's reluctance for teachers to try it because they're afraid of doing it the wrong way, and they're afraid they're going to get slapped on the wrist for doing it wrong instead of being applauded for giving it the best try. So I would ask Rob, if you could just videotape that part of your presentation of you telling people that there isn't a wrong way. And because we don't need to see that. We know that. We're here. But the other 29 members of my faculty that aren't there. And I think that's right. I think Abel said it. We need to share it with the person across the hall, the next door, etc. But obviously, like most of us sitting on this side, I'm not the expert. If I can get the expert to tell them, it might have a further reach.
Thank you. And that's so true. But also please keep in mind that in your room, you are the expert. And you can get input from a lot of other people, but trust your instincts.
It became evident to me, I already suspected that two things during the conference. One is that extensive reading is being done in places where it's quite difficult, places where difficult circumstances, like Vietnam, Nepal, some of the other countries where they need support. And there's people who realize that we need more research and extensive reading and extensive listening to persuade the naysayers that it's a worthwhile pursuit to do extensive reading. Now, I have a commercial product for extensive reading that, of course, needs to make a profit to exist. However, in the fact that it provides pretty much unlimited extensive reading and it tracks reading and use for users, in many ways it's ideal for helping both of those groups. And I think one of the things I've come away from this conference is that I'm going to speak to my partnering publishers and see if there's a way that we can find to support the people who want to do research, people who want to do extensive reading in places where they can't get books, and see if we can find a way to make that possible. Again, within the confines of what a commercial product can do, but in a way that will help extensive reading and possibly grow the market in the future. I think that will be good for everybody. And if I can find a way to do that, I'll make something else that can be reached people who are interested in extensive reading.
When the gentleman over there said there's no wrong way, the first thought that came to my mind, maybe some of you, is, there is a wrong way. What happens if the students don't like it?
And do something else.
No, but actually, then it occurred to me that there's a presenter who couldn't come here from Iran, Sabadi Alavi, and her paper showed that some of the students didn't like it while they were doing it, but when they were done, they finally realized and appreciated the extensive reading, even if they didn't when they were actually in the classroom.
Nice comment, and maybe we need to do things, maybe we need to do awareness activities. At one of the extensive listening sessions, yesterday we were talking, and I mentioned something I do. Our school year starts in April, and some of my students are like, oh my goodness, this is impossible. And about June, I'll go back and replay some of those same recordings that they found impassable in April, and like, oh, that's not so hard anymore. And I mean, doing things to help students notice, which is, I think, what you're reflecting on, Robert, or Tom, is we get this screwed up all the time. Tom, that helping students notice their own progress in a system, and I'm not limiting this to any country, this is true in so many places, a system that encourages students to notice what they do wrong, with over-testing, etc., helping them notice what they're getting, what they're doing right might be an important part of what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay, Christine.
What was the question? Sorry.
What do you want to do? No, your reflections on the conference.
Well, I'm very happy with how the conference went down on a number of different levels. Melanie and I earlier were talking about how we started this. It's been more than a year ago, right? 2 years ago, we actually got permission for the venue. And we're very pleased with the way things have turned out. I hope you are too. But in terms of the content, I'm now a convert, of course. I wasn't that interested in extensive reading before Melanie pulled me into the organization, but I certainly am now. So I'm going to be finding out how to join the organization soon. But I think that the topics have been all great, and I really hope we can do it again sometime, but I know that's not going to be possible for the next few years. Where's the next one? Have we decided yet?
Well, we hope you're going to do a local one again sometime.
Oh, good. Okay.
Do something local.
All right. Okay, let's hand that down for more news on the next one.
I'm just thinking that, one of the things we could do, rather than only think about world congresses, do something local. I mean, one of the things we've got with the other affiliates, ERF affiliates, we've got JERA, of course. We've got the Japan Association, Japan ER group through JOLT. We've got Jeju Island, which is in Korea. We have the Korean English Extensive Reading Association. All of these things are doing regular things. JERA hold out, as Paul was saying before, various conferences and workshops and things. The JOLT does many different things as well. They've got their Colloquium they held recently. In Korea, they're also, 2 weeks from now, holding a big conference in conjunction with other people. And so they've got all the things going on an ongoing basis. Korea, they've got a journal going. I think there's a journal for the other ones as well. These things take time. I'm not trying to put pressure on Melanie, but the point is that, as Mark said before, we shouldn't let the conference finish here. We should continue to do other things. And our hope is that the people who are on the ground here can maybe gang up together and do something small, even at first, like meeting for coffee, on maybe not a Sunday morning, maybe on a Saturday morning, you can meet for a cup of coffee, discuss what's going on. Something informal and become more formal later on. Drag people in, maybe even give yourself a piece of homework to try to, bring in 2 or 3 people into the organization or into the field as a piece of homework for the year for yourself. What can I do to convince 2 or 3 other people to come into the fold? And try to do other things locally. I think hopefully Melanie's got a few things to tell us later about what the plans are for men at ERF.
Can I just add to that? Sure. Well, while sitting here and listening to everyone, I'm thinking of people I know in the field who are strong advocates of extensive reading, but not involved with the Extensive Reading Foundation. What comes to mind, first of all, is a binational center in Lima, Peru, just Lima, and they have 40,000 students in one institute. There are 5 branch campuses, and this particular binational center has made a very strong commitment to extensive reading, but are not involved, they're not here, and they're not involved with the Extensive Reading Foundation. And I'm looking forward to emailing the people I know there to say, I wish you had been here to share your ideas and your approach to extensive reading, and maybe you should get involved with the foundation. And my bet is that all of us know one other person who is either poised to get involved with extensive reading or already involved with extensive reading, whether it be just in the confines of their classroom or maybe their whole program. And so it seems like we could each reach out to one person. Wow, we double the number of proponents of extensive reading just by reaching out to 1 or 2 people, each one of us here. And maybe that's the homework we should all give to ourselves. To, if we believe in extensive reading, reaching out to people that we think are already doing it or are just ready to jump right in.
If I could just add on to that as well, piece of advice I was giving to people from Vietnam and Romania and Mexico before was, you know, people who've come here, you learn something about it, you probably know a little bit more than the people around you. Therefore, go back and be a center of influence. You know, be the seed or the person that sows the seeds in your area. Join up and join together with other like-minded people, bring people in, start little Sunday morning coffees or whatever it might be, build something through a conference, maybe a journal, possibly a website, some formal organization, whatever, become more national, bring people in. And just starting off small, I think, is very important. So, you know, I hope that most of you can go back and start something bigger than yourself. Become a resource, understand what's out there, learn about what materials are out there. If you think in any way the ERF can help you, please contact us, and we'll see what we can do to help you.
Just simply by sharing, I've learned, I mean, I know about the Extensive Reading Foundation website, but I learned about some links within a larger site that I hadn't looked at very carefully. And when I get back, I'm going to add them to my BB Learn for my methods class and make sure that the new generation of teachers, the students that are in my methods class this semester, are going to graduate really familiar with the Extensive Reading Foundation. Not just in name, but actually I'm already planning my lesson where I'm going to actually create activities where they explore the site while we send out a new generation of people who are, you know, maybe going to be able to, in the first jobs they get post-MA, bring extensive reading into those programs.
Great. You kind of summarize. I'm sorry.
I just have a little something to add for that too. When people are in teacher training, it's surprising, again, how, as I think Fredricka said, extensive reading sometimes doesn't even get mentioned on the teacher training syllabus. They don't even know what it is when they graduate. And some of them, maybe they forget about it, if it is mentioned at all, because it's so much about reading strategy, methodology, and the course books, of course, are the de facto curriculum for teaching reading. But when I started my career, I taught in an intensive program in Saudi Arabia for 6 hours a day. And so the last hour, we spent reading the same graded reader, just because the students needed downtime. So I have had teachers come up to me and say, I want to do extensive reading, but I don't have any books, or we don't have a library. And I will tell you how to do it. It's very easy. Just write every graded reader publisher and choose 5 or 6 graded readers and ask them for what is called inspection copies. And they will send them to you, and then you can build up, like I did, a class library of about 200 graded readers. So that's some choice. I don't like that kind of teacher resistance when they say, I don't know how I'll be able to do this. Just send some emails and ask for inspection copies. Before you know it, you'll have a library. Students can start checking them out. You can use mReader or write your own quizzes. And, you know, you can do it. Everybody can do it. Tom always calls it the power of one. One teacher makes a difference, one person. Don't wait and see what other people are doing, or if your library supports you or not. When the classroom door is closed, you are the king or queen of the classroom, even if there's a CCTV camera pointed inside of it, right? So you can do what you want. You can do what you think is right. And if you feel, as we all do, we have a gut feeling that extensive reading is I+1. It increases the input they get. They learn so much more. So much happens in the brain when they read. Just do it. And don't listen to what anyone else says or care what other people do.
And collaborate, which is the whole new meaning of I+1. And one of the reasons that you are here today is because about 15, 17 years ago, Rob Waring edited a special issue of the Jolt Language Teacher, which is our magazine. And Richard Day was part of it, and Paul Nation, Julian, David Hill. Anyway, so a bunch of us were involved in that. About the time, it was January, as I would recall, that we turned in the articles for a May issue, and a few weeks later we had the deadline for the call for papers for the annual conference. So the same group of people put on a colloquium which became an annual event, which we made sure was not the same people every year. So that brought in more and more people. And then after a few years of successful colloquia, one night afterwards, we went out for dinner after the colloquia, and somebody said, you know what, I wasn't going to say that. And that's how the prize, the Language Learner Literature Award, was born. That's how the Extensive Reading Foundation was born. That's how it all started. A bunch of people doing I plus a few, right? What I'd like to ask you to do now, because we're getting toward the end, I'd like to ask you what you're going to do. Can I ask you to think of concrete things? I mean, like, oh yeah, I'm going to do ER. A little vague there, right? I'm going to, next week, give my students 15 minutes of pleasure reading in our reading class. Or I'm going to do SSR for 12 minutes next Tuesday. Or I'm going to invite 2 or 3 teachers from my school to just have a cup of coffee. I'm going to go to ERCentral.com. Or ERCentral.com, which is a site Rob and Charlie Brown largely have put together, which has tons of stuff for teachers as well as students, including reading texts for those of you who have no budget. You can go there and have students read. Resources are there. Anyway, before we end, can you spend, just what are you going to do concretely to make sure, you know what I'm talking about. You know, you come to a conference and it's like, wow, I have so many ideas, and then you go back next week, you're so excited, and then in a month you have good memories, and pretty soon we're all back to normal. And that's not what we want. What you're going to do is concrete. A couple of minutes with the people.
Okay, what I'm going to do is exactly on this Wednesday, I have my extensive reading class. I will do as what we've done. I will upload it in my extensive reading group. There are so many alumni there. They are teachers, and I will tell them I will use freehand automatic so I can explain it, not just uploading the PowerPoint things. And I will also convince the students that have some discussion with me about how to add the English lessons, because based on the curriculum 2013, the cutting of the English lessons time, so the school should add some more extra. So I suggested to do extensive reading, and it works. Some of them even add novels writings, and we have published several novels. Students who write novels. Yes.
Writing novels.
Yeah, but of course, the grammar is being edited by the teachers, which is original by students.
Well, I mean,
That's the real thing that I will do and keep on thinking.
Great, great. A couple more ideas.
This is such a cool idea that's come from our Romanian colleague. She's saying, wouldn't it be great to be able to harness the energy that we have here right now as we try to implement more things? So why not moderate a secret or semi-public Facebook group with more membership, people who are here, who are interested. So if you want to give your email address at the end, it already exists.
Yes.
Great. The ERF does have a Facebook page, and there is also one for, if you put in ERWC3, you can find a Facebook page for this conference, which many of you actually haven't contributed to or didn't even know exists yet. But please, let's activate that.
Yeah. Can I suggest, just to be practical, let's go for the regular one. Go to Facebook, search for Extensive Reading Foundation. Do you remember the URL?
No, what I will do is on the erfoundation.org page, I'll put a link to the Facebook page.
Great. And let's, because there are a few pages, just to keep the conversation in one place, let's put it there. I'd like to finish up with a couple of things. Yeah, we can do this all virtually on Facebook, and that's wonderful because we have Romania, we have Mexico, and we have Nepal, and we have Vietnam and Brazil, and we got all over, and especially we have the Gulf, Indonesia, Malaysia, Brazil, the Gulf, all this kind of stuff. But let me focus for a moment on the Emirates and the Gulf and North Africa. We have MENA, the Middle East and Northern Africa Extensive Reading Foundation, and especially those of you who want to be involved. There's a sheet here that says, I want to be involved. I'd like to be direct, okay? And I'll put one on each table. And there's another one says, friend. And this is what Fredricka was saying. Maybe you have a friend, maybe a colleague who you think would like to be involved. Please, at the very end, I'm going to invite you to come here, and I'll put one set of these on each table, and we really, really hope that you will. Write down your name. You know what I heard Rob saying when he was talking about is, you know, the Gandhi's maxim, be the change you want to be. Well, that includes education, and that's, I hope, what we're doing. The last thing I'd like to do on behalf of the Extensive Reading Foundation is thank a couple of people in particular. This is Christine's school, and thank you for making it possible for us to be here, and thank you for all you've done. And especially Melanie has been working so much for the past several years. And finally, I'd like to thank you guys who made it all work. And I have to mention Rob, well, of course, our featured speakers, Willy and Fredricka. Plenary speakers, and the featured speakers, Julie and Adam, who could not be here today. And thanks especially, Rob Waring was also plenary, didn't I? No. Oh, and Christina. Christina, yeah. Yeah, okay, anyway. Yeah. And I said, Rob, for both being a plenary and for being a fearless, and not only fearless, but tireless worker. And you're Australian, right? And some of you may not know the word dog's body, but it applies, right? And Tom Robb for doing a ton of work. And to everybody else involved, thanks for all you're doing. And to the student helpers who couldn't be here today because they're in school, and they all came down from Abu Dhabi, I think. And yeah, thank you very much.
The helpers were all from Paris Sorbonne University in Abu Dhabi.
Thank you. And the next one, the ERF World Congress 4. Let me tell you what we're thinking about. Two things, location and site. Those would be similar, wouldn't they? I'm tired, okay? What I think is going to happen next time, which will probably be in 2 years, the World Congress 4 will probably be in Japan. Okay, because that's what the first one was in Japan, Korea, and then here. I think we'll be in Japan next time, but what we're hoping to do before that is do smaller mini-conference road shows, something like that. We're thinking Vietnam, we're thinking Taiwan. The idea is, rather than, do the big thing in Japan and then people go out, which we hope they will, but also if we can seed it, kind of, like by going to some of these other countries, getting people interested, identifying scholars and people who can help make things happen. And we had a wonderful idea for the theme for the conference next time. And Anne has no idea I'm about to hand her the microphone. Welcome to my country? No.
Well, I was just tossing out a lot of different themes, but extensive reading in challenging communities or contexts, that's kind of what I got out of this conference, just all the innovative things that are happening in extensive reading all over the world. I mean, particularly at this conference, those countries that were represented were doing some really interesting things with a lack of resources, and that would just be great to see.
Yeah. And how do we use the resources of more resourced countries to make things possible in other places?
If I could just follow on from what Mark was saying about trying to do road shows and things. Another thing we'd like to do in the ERF is to try to develop the number of affiliates that we have over a longer period of time. Tom Mercelin has just started one in the UK. Would you like to tell us a little bit about what you're doing there? You had a session the other day. Just tell us what you're doing, what your plans are, what you hope to get out of it. And we would hope that maybe in Taiwan, maybe Anna, we can ask you to help.
One in the UK, we're hoping to not just do for extensive reading, but also bring in literacy. Bring in authors, and thank you. Bring in authors. I'm a teacher, I've got a voice. And make it more of an umbrella organisation. But it's also to unite both the United Kingdom and the Republic of Ireland, and to bring those two. And within those countries, we've got such a tradition in literature anyway. And we've got a lot of teaching organisations. So we can involve all of those people, and that therefore it can be a far bigger organisation. And then because of that, we've got all the things going on, all the publishers there, we can hopefully provide a lot of ideas and resources for other countries to give them impetus to start their own things. But one of the things I want to try and do is, I used to do a Read magazine. I would like to try and get that restarted, which is a free magazine given out at teaching events. And the other thing is we would like to start is a radio program, which is digital, which can then therefore be accessed online. Radio is good. If you've got a university radio, it will be digital, which means you can then use that as a platform to inform people. And you can start programs on EF, you can start programs on books, reading, teaching, whatever you want to do. Just talk to the people, and because it's community radio, they're looking for ideas about how to fill the time. And if you're enthusiastic, you can do it. That's the idea.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Do you want to say anything about Taiwan?
I'm from Taiwan, and I think we have a lot of teachers doing extensive reading. But the problem is that I think most of them are small scale. So I think that which really makes communication very, very difficult. So I just have a suggestion for, because we have the Journal of Extensive Reading, right? And then I have a suggestion for the conference is that I would, because the conference originally asked us to submit a short article about 3,500 words as a proceeding, right? But I was thinking because the value of proceeding usually is lower. So how about that we encourage participants to submit their paper to the Journal of Extensive Reading. So for consideration. So I think that because I know some of you have the publication pressure, and so if it is published in a journal, I think that they will be more valuable, and then there are lots of reviewers who will give us suggestions. Right. So that's my suggestion.
There are actually two journals, or countries actually. The two journals are extensive reading, one through the JOLTSIG, and there's also one in Korea through the KIRA organization. jealous of extensive reading and submit to.
Just on your idea of having the voting cell, and you said the next one Congress might not be for 2 years, but yeah, what's wrong with regional conferences? And just kind of a question for Melanie. Is there an extensive reading special interest group as part of Tesla Radio?
Yes, actually, Tom founded a special interest group called, here, he's at the front in the UK now. He founded a special interest group called Read SIG a few years ago. Someone else has been running that group, and we started the MENA ERF Foundation to be able to host the Congress here, but now I will be the secretary, and Helen will be the treasurer, and Brighton Farah will be the chair for the Read SIG group, and we're hoping to promote more extensive reading activities between MENA ERF and the Read SIG. So yes, there is. Basically.
Maybe it needs to be publicized a little more.
We'll have an event, we'll let you know, maybe even at the PR.
Great,
Jeff
we'll try.
will help us out.
I'm getting signal that, okay, so I have to finish this. I want to thank you all so much for participating, for making this a great weekend. And there are 2 sign-up sheets. What are those for? You know, what were they for? To get involved and for your friend. Right? And we have this thing, repeat to remember, remember to repeat. That's what I was doing, spaced repetition. Right? Thank you all very much. Thanks for being part of this. And let's